present day, we're going on a cross-country road trip. Ultimately, we're going to be visiting a total of 25 states. And along the way, we are going to be hosting a bunch of hikes. We want to go get out in nature and go walk and talk with women and record conversations for the Hit Like a Girl podcast. Instead of the idea of getting back to normal, how can we create the new normal that we'd like to see? But where did this all come from? Like, why me? I guess 2019, like late 2019 is a good place to start. And that was at a time when we were collaborating with the health conference and recording a bunch of podcasts with amazing women in the industry there. So it was kind of a nice experience for the podcast. That was the first conference that our podcast had collaborated with. And what was going on behind the scenes for me personally was that I was in the process of ending my marriage. And so as somebody who is kind of making her own way in business for myself and having started this podcast as a passion project, also experiencing, some personal turmoil. My ex-husband and I lived in San Diego for the last decade. That's mostly where I'm from. I have a lot of family there. My father grew up there, but my father actually was born in Mexico. And so taking the transition from being married to being newly separated / divorced with just my dog, San Diego is a really expensive city. It's not something that, probably, honestly, I was like, I'm not going to go from owning a home to having roommates and running my business stay at home. I have a stay at home business by design. It's I would be a terrible roommate. I'm just not in a position to actually make that specific move, and I really just wasn't willing to do it. So I really had to get creative, and I had to think okay, well, where can I afford to live based on the decisions that I'm making for myself professionally? So that was February, and I knew it was going to be a hectic time because in the process of getting the paperwork started for the divorce, moving to Mexico, we were also coordinating to go to HIMSS. And as we all know, the world turned upside down at that time. I had coordinated all these amazing interviews with women that we were going to see in person at HIMSS. That all got canceled. So I moved in here on March 1st of 2020, and the stay-at-home orders went into place a week later. It was insane. I mean, I knew that it was going to be a big change in my life, but what I had not been anticipating was how isolated I was going to be for the next 6 months. I still had a lot of those interviews with the women set up for HIMSS. That ended up being a lot of the content for season 5 of Hit Like a Girl podcast. That was all done remotely. But essentially it was all joy and Juno time, all the time. Come June, I got to the point where I was realizing, okay, what is our intention here? The intention is to stay away from people. I'm in this new situation where I'm basically solo with my dog. I can stay away from people in other places. And so that's what I did. I hopped in my car August 1st. I stayed with Amy for a week in Phoenix. And then I essentially kept going. I drove north through northern Arizona and then through Utah. And I kind of signed up for several Airbnbs in random places. I stayed on an Indian reservation. I stayed out in some national forests and state forests. I got to go camping by myself. That was its own adventure. I traveled through to Yellowstone. I basically had this amazing time. Just got super, super inspired. So what was intended to be a 1-week trip ended up being a 6-week trip. I visited 8 states in total, did a big old loop. When I got to California, it was around the time of the wildfires. And so the wildfires kind of sparked this other type of journey emotionally of just holy cow. It really was feeling like the end of the world for a minute there, of just the world as we know it is changing, and what do we do with our time here? And it really, gave me this idea of we got to be purposeful It was such a powerful road trip for me. I came home just super high on life and feeling extra confident. I thought, this is such a simple thing, and I might be in a perfect position to share it, to create this experience for others. And so I thought, let me hook back up with these conferences. And if HIMSS is in a position to be back on, and since that was sort of the start of this journey of how where we were supposed to go, but we didn't actually get to go, it felt kind of symbolic that we would get to kind of finish that. That's it. That's the gist of it. I'm so thrilled with what is to come in this journey. And so as you follow along, now you know a little bit of the backstory.